The night air was thick with an eerie stillness as I stumbled through the dimly lit streets of downtown Austin. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a desperate reminder that I was still alive. For now. The events of the past few hours played on repeat in my mind, a horrifying loop I couldn't escape. My name is Logan, and I never believed in monsters, at least not until tonight. It had started as a typical Friday evening. I'd met up with some friends at a new bar on 6th Street, eager to kick off the weekend with a few drinks and good company. The place was packed, the music was loud, and the energy was electric. Little did I know that this night would change my life forever. As the hours ticked by and the crowd thinned, I decided to call it a night. My apartment was just a few blocks away, and I'd walked home countless times before. The cool October air felt refreshing after the stuffy bar, and I relished the quiet of the city winding down. That's when I heard it, a low, guttural growl that sent shivers down my spine. I quickened my pace, chalking it up to my imagination, or perhaps a stray dog. But then I saw it, a pair of glowing yellow eyes in the shadows of an alleyway. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The eyes blinked, and suddenly a massive form emerged from the darkness. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen, a creature that stood on 2 legs like a man, but with the head and fur of a wolf. Its muzzle was pulled back in a snarl, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. In that moment, my world shattered. Everything I thought I knew about reality crumbled away, replaced by a primal fear that gripped every fiber of my being. I ran. My feet pounded the pavement as I tore through the streets, the sound of heavy footfalls and ragged breathing close behind. I darted down alleys, vaulted over fences, and zigzagged through parking lots, desperate to lose my pursuer. But no matter how fast I ran or how many turns I took, the creature seemed to be right there, always just a few steps behind. Its howls echoed off the buildings, a bone-chilling sound that sent waves of terror coursing through me. I burst into Zilker Park, hoping the open space would give me an advantage. The moonlight cast long shadows across the grass, and for a brief moment, I thought I'd lost the beast. But then I heard a twig snap behind me, and I knew I was wrong. Spinning around, I came face to face with the werewolf. Up close, it was even more terrifying. Its fur was matted with what looked like dried blood, and its eyes burned with an otherworldly hunger. I stumbled backward, tripping over a root and falling hard onto my back. The creature loomed over me, its hot breath washing over my face. I closed my eyes, certain that this was the end, but then, inexplicably, it let out a mournful howl and bounded away into the darkness. Shaking and gasping for air, I scrambled to my feet. I couldn't understand why it had spared me, but I wasn't about to question my luck. I ran again, this time towards the lights of downtown, praying for safety. As I reached the edge of the park, I collided with a group of late-night joggers. They looked at me with concern, taking in my disheveled appearance and wild eyes. I tried to explain what had happened, but the words caught in my throat. How could I possibly make them understand? One of them, a kind-faced woman, offered to call the police. I nodded, grateful for their presence, but unable to shake the feeling that we were all in danger. As we waited for help to arrive, I kept scanning the tree line, half expecting to see those glowing eyes again. The police arrived quickly, their flashing lights temporarily chasing away the shadows. I gave them a statement, carefully omitting any mention of werewolves or monsters. Even in my terrified state, I knew how crazy it would sound. Instead, I described an attack by a large animal, possibly a wolf or a coyote. The officers exchanged skeptical glances but took my statement seriously enough to call animal control. They offered to give me a ride home, which I gratefully accepted. As we drove through the quiet streets, I couldn't help but feel like we were being watched. Back in my apartment, I double-checked every lock and drew all the curtains. Sleep was out of the question. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those razor-sharp teeth and glowing eyes. Instead, I sat in the corner of my living room, a kitchen knife clutched in my trembling hands, and waited for dawn. As the first rays of sunlight peeked through the curtains, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I'd survived the night. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. Over the next few days, I scoured the internet for information on werewolves, lycanthropy, and any reported sightings in the Austin area. Most of what I found was clearly fiction or the ramblings of conspiracy theorists. But buried in forums and obscure websites, I started to piece together a terrifying picture. There were others who had encountered something similar. Hikers in the Barton Creek Greenbelt, late-night workers downtown, even a few University of Texas students, all had stories of a wolf-like creature stalking the shadows of Austin. Most were dismissed as urban legends or the result of too much alcohol. But I knew the truth. I became obsessed with understanding what I'd seen and figuring out why it had let me live. I started carrying silver jewelry, just in case the old legends held any truth. I avoided going out at night and installed extra locks on my doors and windows. My friends worried about me, but I couldn't bring myself to tell them the real reason for my paranoia. A week after my encounter, I received an anonymous email. The subject line read, "I know what you saw." With shaking hands, I opened it. The message was brief. "Meet me at the Driscoll Hotel Bar tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Come alone if you want answers." Every instinct told me it was a trap, but my need for answers outweighed my fear. The next night, I found myself sitting in the historic hotel's dimly lit bar, nursing a whiskey and jumping at every shadow. At precisely 9 p.m., an elderly man slid into the seat across from me. His face was weathered, and his eyes held a haunted look that I recognized all too well. Without preamble, he began to speak. "The creature you encountered is part of a lineage that stretches back centuries," he said in a low voice. "They've existed in the shadows of human civilization, feeding on our fear as much as our flesh. Austin has been home to one of their packs for generations." He went on to explain that the werewolves were not mindless beasts, but intelligent predators with their own society and rules. They chose their victims carefully, usually targeting those who wouldn't be missed or whose disappearances could be easily explained away. "But sometimes," he continued, his voice dropping even lower, "they choose to let someone live, to mark them, to hunt them slowly, savoring their fear. That's what's happened to you, son." My blood ran cold as the implications of his words sank in. The creature hadn't spared me out of mercy. It was toying with me. The old man slid a small leather-bound book across the table. "This journal contains everything I've learned about them over the years. Weaknesses, habits, hiding places. It's yours now. Use it to survive." Before I could ask any more questions, he stood up and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I was left alone with the journal and a growing sense of dread. Over the next few weeks, I pored over the journal, absorbing every detail. I learned about the werewolves' aversion to certain herbs, their heightened senses, and the locations around Austin where they were most active. Armed with this knowledge, I began to prepare. I lined my windows with mountain ash, hung sachets of wolfsbane in every room, and started carrying a silver-plated knife. I knew I couldn't hide forever. Eventually, I would have to face the creature that had marked me. My chance came on a moonlit night in November. I was walking home from a late shift at work, my senses on high alert. As I passed by the Texas state capitol, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I knew without turning around that I was being watched. Slowly, I reached into my pocket and gripped the silver knife. "I know you're there," I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. "Let's end this." A low chuckle emanated from the shadows, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps. The werewolf emerged from behind a statue, its yellow eyes fixed on me with predatory intensity. "Brave little human," it growled, its voice a horrifying mix of animal and man. "You've learned much, but knowledge won't save you." It lunged at me with incredible speed, but this time I was prepared. I dodged to the side, slashing out with the silver knife. The blade caught the creature's arm, and it let out a howl of pain and rage. We danced a deadly waltz across the Capitol grounds. The werewolf's strength and speed matched against my desperation and newfound knowledge. I used every trick I'd learned from the journal, keeping the creature off balance and searching for an opening. Finally, as dawn began to break, I saw my chance. The werewolf, weakened by the coming day and our long battle, stumbled. I drove the silver knife deep into its chest, twisting the blade with all my might. The creature's howl of agony echoed across the city as it thrashed and convulsed. Slowly, its form began to shift, fur receding and limbs contorting until a man lay before me, gasping his last breaths. As the sun rose over Austin, I stood there, bloodied and exhausted but alive. I had faced my nightmare and survived. But as I looked down at the body, I realized that this was just the beginning. There were more out there, hiding in the shadows of the city I called home. I knew then that my life would never be the same. I had glimpsed a world beyond the veil of normalcy, a world of monsters and ancient battles. And now, whether I liked it or not, I was a part of it. As I walked away from the Capitol, the journal heavy in my pocket and the silver knife still clutched in my hand, I made a vow. I would use what I had learned to protect others, to hunt the creatures that stalked the night. Austin had a new guardian, forged in terror and tempered by survival. The Werewolf of Austin was dead, but the war had just begun. And I, Logan, once an ordinary 26-year-old, now stood as the first line of defense against the horrors that lurked in the Texas shadows.